What's going on, everybody? My name is Nini, or Ninjdro, and if you've never played Ezreal, or want to learn, I'm here to teach you what I know. I play League since Season 2, ranked since Season 3. I'm a Master Tier ADC who primarily plays Ezreal, and I want to teach you what I learned. I want to preface that this guide is to Ezreal's runes, build, and laning phase as of patch 13-15. If you want a more mechanical-oriented guide where I go in-depth on spell rotation, spell maxing, situational choices, damage lineups, execution thresholds, then I'll be more than happy to do that as well, and even go into more in-depth on the topics that are at hand in the video that you don't quite understand. Let me know in the comments. I'll be more than happy to address them and make a video out of it to help you guys understand, because I just want people to get better at League. Okay, first up, runes in champ select. At the current moment, my go-to is Press the Attack, Presence of Mind, Bloodline, and Cut Down. You only go coup de grace if the enemy team has no tanks. Second tree will be Inspiration with Magic Footwear and Cosmic Insight. Magic Footwear, obviously, for making your build 300 gold cheaper, and Cosmic Insight for the CDR on your Summoner spell. Some matchup exceptions: if you're fighting a heavy poke lane, swapping Boots for Biscuits is a good choice, as it will add more sustain to your lane and make it easier for you to farm without having to be sent back all the time. A Conqueror swap over Press the Attack is another swap I recommend if you see the fight's going to be long and drawn out into the enemy team count. A good rule of thumb would be if they have a lot of bruisers or they're really tanky, taking Conqueror is better than taking Press the Attack. Alright, now that we got champ select out of the way, let's move on to starter items. You have three choices. You have Longsword 3 pots, or refillable. You have Doran's Blade 1 pot, and you have Call 1 pot. Which one you choose is actually based on your lane matchup. What is my lane matchup? Let's break it down very simply. Generally speaking, support dictates the flow of bot lane. The stronger support has dominance up to a point where someone else will take reigns, i.e. level 6 difference, or someone gets fed. We will talk about more of this later in the video. Longsword 3 pots is the default into most lanes, winning or losing. You absolutely want to take them into heavier harass lanes like Xerath, Karma, Lux, your typical poke supports or AP mages. Doran's Blade is picked into engage or burst lanes like Nautilus, Thresh, Leona, Pantheon. Just, you need the extra HP to survive their burst. That's why you take it. Call is a unique case. It is specifically tailored to if your lane is a non-kill lane. And what I mean by non-kill lane is that, like, your champions don't exactly have the best time killing each other. Like, so for example, in the case of engage supports, Alistar versus Thresh. If Thresh tries to engage, Alistar disengages Thresh, and then Thresh can't do it. Alistar engages, Thresh disengages the Alistar. There's really not much you can do there. Enchanter examples are Raka versus Milio. Nobody's going to kill each other, so you just farm. That's the at the end of the day, the idea with Call is for a neutral lane to just farm and get a free 300 gold. These are the general core builds I recommend. If you're not sure what a core build is, it is a build consistent of the primary items you get before you start looking for situationally defensive or offensive items against your opponent. As an ADC, it is imperative that you finish your core as soon as possible without trying to buy something else. The first build, option A, is your generalistic, this is probably what you're going to take about 80% of the time, Triforce, Manamune, Lucidities / Tabbies. If the enemy team has a lot of auto attack or a lot of AD, take Tabbies into Serrald's Grudge. Build B is for when you're ahead or if you're fighting a team full of squishies. It is Essence Reaver, Manamune, Lucidity Boots, Dustblade, Serrald's Grudge. It's expensive, but you're ahead, so you can afford it. Build C, my personal favorite, I don't get to play it very often, is Essence Reaver, Navori, Boots of whatever choice, Bloodthirster. Okay, your core has been built, but you have no idea what to build next. Ask yourself what you need for a fourth item based on the game's state. However, I want to preface that the game state is subjective. Being fed gives you leniency. If there is no point-and-click, one-shot abilities on the enemy team, just opt for more damage. If you want to maintain a lead, and it is possible to give up your shutdown, consider a defensive option so you don't die. But if you're unsure, ask yourself what you need and consider the following items. Laning phase. Alright, let's talk about how you will address, simplistically anyways, every potential matchup in the game as Ezreal. There are 3 types of lanes you will have to contend with: poke, sustain, and all-in. There's catch. For simplistic sake, catch is just in the all-in category. The holy trinity of matchups is like rock, paper, scissors. Poke beats all-in beats sustain, and sustain beats poke. Alright, let's talk about matchups. Our first matchup is if you're playing with the poke support, and this is versus other lanes. So, poke versus poke, you want to kind of keep the wave into their tower by slow pushing it progressively, and then harassing them while you push and while it's under tower. All without being said that you have to avoid jungle or the enemy jungler, so try not to push the wave into tower and harass them if your jungler is not on your section of the map. Poke versus all-in, you want to keep the wave just outside your tower. You kind of achieve this by slow pushing the wave into tower and then backing up, and eventually the wave will come back to you, and you thin it just before it hits the freezing point. And you want to kind of harass the engaged champion as much as possible, especially before levels 3 and 4. And you want to avoid being engaged on by the engaged champion, so when you harass, keep in mind of their engage ranges. Poke versus sustain, you don't exactly win this lane, so your goal is just to farm. Same wave manipulation as last time. You want to keep the wave just outside your turret. This gives your jungler the best possible opportunity to gank your lane, to actually kill them, and that should help you kind of progress the lead if you're farming effectively. Next matchup, all-ins. All-in lanes are, as they say, you're looking to all-in your opponent. If you're fighting an all-in lane, wave manipulation is honestly the skill check here, because you want to keep the wave under your tower, just like in the matchup versus them, because all-in lanes have a harder time pre-6 diving, and they work best when they have more room to run the enemy down. All-in versus poke is a skill matchup as well. You want to avoid taking as much damage as possible pre-level 3, and you want to look for an all-in on level 2 if you get it first, if not, level 3 for sure. Keeping the wave near your tower, as in other matchups, will be tough because if it just sits there, they will whittle you down. Look for an all-in here, and if not, just push the wave and reset the wave state to try again next time. All-in versus sustain, very simple. Manipulate the wave to have it sit just outside your tower, like before, and look for another all-in when available. They will not be able to fight your burst post 3, so this is probably your key moment to look for something, if you don't find something levels 1 or 2. Last matchup. Sustain lanes, in my opinion, are the simplest lanes to play. You can very much still kill your opponents as other lanes, but you have a choice not to and just scale, because they offer a lot of defensive capabilities. Sustain versus sustain is a null lane. You'll more than likely won't be able to kill your opponent without jungler influence, so try not to keep your wave outside their turret to get ganked. Sustain versus poke, while you will survive the harass for this lane, you should still avoid damage as much as possible, and keep the waves pushed under their tower while backing up after to ward or to be cautious of the enemy jungler. Sustain versus all-in, this is the lane where you have to be careful. Just as I mentioned before, if the wave state is under their tower, you will more than likely be ran down and die. So avoid this, and try to keep the wave just outside your tower so your jungler can help you. How to play out level 1. You do one of 3 things at the very beginning of the game, every single game. If you're leashing, you gotta watch out for bush cheeses along the way back to lane. If the enemy lane has a stronger level 1 than you, take the safe route. Number 2, if you aren't leashing, you have a stronger lane, try to look for a bush cheese. Even if it is just to chunk the enemy's HP and run, that's fine, do it. Number 3, if you don't have the stronger level 1, and you want to get a lead in lane first for your opponent, let's let the first wave crash, and then when all 3 casters are autoing, hit the middle one, and then walk back. If you do this right, aggro the casters, they will auto attack you, and when they break aggro, they'll focus a singular melee minion, which will die before your opponent can get back to their wave, if they are leashing. If they are not leashing, then they will probably get the experience, but at the same time, this works because you can slow push the wave faster, and if they're leashing, they miss out on a melee worth of experience, meaning they don't get leveled off the second wave of melees. So it's like a win-win, right? So I recommend doing these 3. It'll help a lot. Your goal is to hit level 3 and to get level 2 as soon as possible without fast pushing the second wave underneath their tower. So the idea is that you want to last hit the first wave as much as possible without hard pushing, and then on the second wave doing the same, and then aggressing onto the opponent once you have level 2 and seeing if they concede the wave or not. Because if you hit level 2 first, you will more than likely win the trade, no matter the matchup. You will more than likely win the trade, level 2, if you hit it first. And then once you have either given control of the wave or gotten control, you want to fast push the wave as quickly as possible the moment that the third wave hits, the one with the siege minion inside of it, and then you can then either ward the bush nearest to your lane or go for the furthest bush, or you can take a cheater recall if you have lane prio, and then from this point on, you then have the fourth wave coming in, which will slow push towards you, and you will be able to hit level 3 off the third melee of that wave. And then past this point, after you hit level 3, your lane starts to play out based on the matchup that I mentioned before. So again, in champ select, consider your matchups and then play them out accordingly up until post level 3. So we're going to talk mid-game now. 14 minutes has passed. Either that or your tower has been taken or your opposing laner's tower has been taken. What do you do next? Well, at this stage of the game, you should have some semblance of gold under your belt or something has happened, whether you've died or you've gotten kills. Your next goal is to go to another lane. Now, normally the ADC goes mid. You can try to go mid and see if your mid laner will catch on what you're trying to do, or ask them, hey, can I go mid and you take side lane? And if they don't do that, then that's fine. Try to do it top lane then next, because the idea is that you want to put the AD carry closest to the next set of gold. It's easier on mid lane because you're within reach of Dragon and Rift Herald at this stage of the game. But ideally, that's not going to happen every game, at least not until you get to like higher elos. So the idea is that the side lane, so if you can't get mid, right, you want to take the side lane that is closest to the most important objective. If both are up and it's pre-20, I would probably argue that this is probably like second, maybe third Drake, if there was like a super early Drake taken. So you probably want to focus Rift Herald, because this gives you towers. And then if Rift Herald is down, then you obviously will have to go back bot if your mid laner doesn't want to give it up. So that's basically what you do in mid lane, or in the mid game. You go to the lane, you go to mid, you farm out mid, and then you join up for every fight that basically is about to happen. So you push the wave and then you look to see what your team wants to do. If a fight breaks out as you're farming mid lane, does not matter the wave state, does not matter if it's a siege minion, just drop the wave and go help your team. Numbers advantage in League is the most important thing. You and your opposing AD carry are farming mid. If you and your opposing ADC are farming and the fight breaks out near Dragon because they're trying to get vision control, ditch the wave and go help. Because if that ADC sits there and just continues farming and your team is currently fighting a 3v3, then you joining it makes it a 4v3, giving your team an advantage in the fight, meaning that you could potentially wipe those 3 players and then grab Dragon afterwards. For free, literally free. Hey guys, I hope you learned something from this guide. I know it's a bit simplistic and I generalized a lot of things, but in order to keep the video short and not 30 minutes and me just talking all the time, I had to kind of break things down to something very simple. But again, did you like it? Do you want me to go more in depth with specific concepts or ideas that I mentioned in the video? Is there anything I said that you don't agree with or you feel like I said was wrong? Feel free to let me know in the comments, or bother me on my Twitch stream. But again, I wanted to thank you all for watching. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.